welcome to the Naked Podcaster. I'm Jen Taylor, and today I'm talking with Helen Bernand. Helen, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Jen. How are you?
Good. And now everybody knows that you have an accent. So tell us where you're located.
I'm in the UK, in Northern England.
Okay.
So I've got a nice northern accent.
See, I can't differentiate that, but I always think other accents sound kind of sexy. And so then I realized, well, if you have an accent to me, then I have an accent to you. So I'm equally as sexy. So here we are.
Sexy girls.
You have the most unique website, just so different from anything I've ever interviewed. So I'm really excited about it. Your website, which we'll have linked, it's belief444.com. Tell me about this, what you're doing.
Okay. Well, we primarily it's horses that we care for. And some years ago, I had quite a life-changing experience, which I would say took me more deeply into sort of the heart of what the horse is about. And it sort of changed the direction of what we were doing with the horses. And we set up a centre that was dedicated to them, where their needs were met in not just emotionally and physically, but spiritually. So we saw what I'd witnessed with them. I realised that by creating this space that was sort of evolving and developing to meet the instinctual needs, was freeing them in a way that then I could receive back from them. And so this became a very, very profound and sort of important goal for me to reach. So we set the haven up initially to care for the horses that we took in, whether they were rescue horses or horses that were being rehabilitated, which then went on to them working with people in the way that I had experienced during this sort of life-changing experience, where they would basically heal people. So that's sort of what we started caring for them, and then they just started caring back for us, basically. So that's what we do. I would say the main part of our work now is sort of sharing that connection that we found with other people. And it sounds quite sort of simple and easy, but you can imagine it's quite hard work, especially while we're building up the environment, and we are trying to constantly and by subtly watching them and observing them, meet the needs in a more natural way, as opposed to just treating them like domesticated horses. We are reading individually what each animal that comes here really needs, and adjusting the environment, changing things, and really making sure that their lives are fulfilled to such a depth that they're really experiencing life. They're really experiencing who they are, and in that we really witness a freedom and a contentment, which is just mirrored back through the work that they then offer to us and other people who come. So those are things that are quite prominent at the moment, and it sort of went further as this sort of started to develop. People, certainly I began to write, and through this sort of connection that was created, we all began to express in our own individual ways, but writing became quite a theme here. So most people that come usually tend to write and start to express through writing or poetry, and this is another area we have sort of developed to help people's potential be met, and to find out who they are, and to create, really bring that into the day-to-day lives. So
you guys have a herd. You have a herd
yes.
of horses there, and you do other things. I mean, you do other things with them that more standard horse things.
Yes, definitely, yeah.
We have a program here in Nevada. It's an equine therapy program for kids with disabilities. So I worked a long time. I worked years, almost 20 years with foster kids.
All
And
right.
so foster kids are one demographic, but kids with disabilities, autism, Down syndrome. And we have this amazing program through the university here for equine therapy. So I've actually been there and interviewed them years ago, and I've seen their program. So at first, when you look at your website, you know, I'm like, okay, so we're getting healed through horses. Okay. And at first glance, that might seem a little out there. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just like what they do here. I mean, the similar thing, the ability to take an animal and their energy and the person and their energy and work to heal them. And when you look at a child with a disability, it makes this enormous impact.
It's huge. Yeah.
It's huge. And so you're doing that with a different or more broad demographic of people.
Yeah, we do. And we have worked with children, and we have different, we have someone tomorrow actually who's coming with Down syndrome, and we work with them in a way to really get into that place where each individual can read what the horses are displaying in order to deal with whatever it might be that is, and you will have seen this when you work with them, with the children, particularly I think children or adults with additional needs tend to tune in really quickly to that connection. It's sort of instantaneous. They're on that wavelength. So the speed of the healing and the that sensitivity between them and the horses is quite profound. I think I tend to see with us who are thinking all the time and going out there doing all the linear logical stuff, maybe takes a little bit longer to just settle into the environment, just accept the environment, let go of what we're usually doing, to really tap into that inner communication and inner connection, which is beautiful. And I haven't seen it yet where they haven't been able to trigger that relaxation response in somebody and just really ground them and bring them back to themselves, to begin their sort of unique session. Because again, I'm sure you saw with the kids you work with, that it is quite unique every time, because their horses are reading what is happening in the moment and working with what they see on the day. So yeah, we work with pretty much anybody really, anyone who I mean, this maybe sounds strange, but you just it's like the animals have already tuned into who's coming. It's like they know, and we get connected up with people who are ready to come. It's one of those
intuitive. It's intuitive. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it's beautiful to watch, and it's something that I have had to learn not to try and control, or I have to allow it to evolve, and I have to so it makes me really work on myself at being present, accepting, allowing, and not goal setting, because you know we tend to have that, you know, especially when we're creating something, you know. So I've learned to go with the flow. I've learned to accept who they choose, who they are choosing really, and who are choosing them, and facilitate as best I can, you know. And that's what we want to do.
I know that you talk a little on the website about fostering animals, horses. So I recently saw a video about dogs who are abused. And how they can be horribly abused, right? And then you get them out of that situation, and you take care of their health first, which is the most urgent issue. And then you kind of open your arms to love them, and how instantly they switch. Whereas people, we get really stuck on what happened to us. Like you said, we're analytical, we overthink it, we can't just let that energy kind of flow. And how these dogs are just, I mean, it's like nothing ever happened. They will love the next person unconditionally, even after this horrible life. And horses, I'm guessing, are the same.
Yeah, they tend to be, but they'll and you can really work with that, but they do have this memory. It's like they have a default. We have I mean, she's still with us, and I think she will stay with us because she was so damaged physically and mentally that learned behavior, it is still in there. And I know that the trigger would go if the environment changed and, you know, the people changed who care for her, and she would revert back to that. Although she's become very trusting with us, and we can do a lot with her, I think she'd just gone over that level of that defense mechanism that triggered to protect her was just, I think, pushed beyond the boundaries. So I do feel with her, she would always trigger back if she really felt frightened again. But with the others, they all have seen, she's the only one at the moment that I would say we've still got quite a long way to go. Whether she'll ever fully let go of the trauma, I'm not quite 100% with her, but the others definitely, as they've let go bit by bit. And it's been a process. We you know, they have taught me quite a lot as I've gone through the processes of helping them unlearn or undo. They're teaching me something quite enormous back. So it's always a two-way thing. But when we have got to another level of understanding and released a fear or an issue that has been learned, then the trust is phenomenal. It is beautiful. And so I would say, certainly from my point of view, with the ones we've got, 90% of the time, it's similar to the dogs, you know, that they're letting go of it and then they're fully trusting. But just that other 10%, it's as if they're just still holding on a bit and still just not quite. But like we take rescue dogs in as well, and like you said, they're amazing. They settled into our environment. They're 100% with us. They're not always 100% when I take them all out together. They're a bit wild. But definitely, you know, they completely 100% love us back. And it's very rewarding and enriching, definitely.
You have 2 books published?
Yes, I do.
You have 2 books published. We'll link all of this.
Okay.
And your daughter Emma draws and paints.
Yes. Yeah, and she's just released, she's just published a poetry book. She's just done, she started, her sort of creativity started coming through in spoken word poetry. So that's sort of taken, she's just been working with National Youth Theatre, a festival. So again, it seems to have looked, that the experience I had with the horses seemed to unlock us all into this sort of creative mode of sharing, either through you know, writing or Emma acts as well, and poetry. So it's certainly become an outlet that we didn't realize we had.
Right, and you have a song. So yes, I listened to that. I know. I'm linking it. It's so neat. It's so exciting. So take me back, because you weren't always on the horse farm.
No.
So let's discuss your life.
Okay. Well, I've always I love the horses, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. All the animals. It's just me, and I think as I grew up, people thought I was sensitive, and it wasn't. Some of the feelings that I had and that I felt a connection to with animals was seen as you know, not a strength to have, if that makes sense. So you hide it a little bit, and I would say I didn't always maybe say what I truly thought, because it wasn't accepted in a way that was maybe acceptable as in the years that I was growing up. Then I did normal jobs. I did want to work with horses, but I was discouraged to. So I just did jobs, you know, lots of different jobs. And then it was after I had Emma, I went back to train as a teacher, and all this time I'd had horses and done a lot with them. But I thought, I'm going to, you know, take this into more of a sort of a professional working direction. And that was amazing, really, because it's like taking back your life, taking back your passion, and beginning to fulfill what never ever left. And during that period, so I was teaching and working in colleges, and then I decided to to cut a long story short, I really enjoyed the anatomy and physiology. So it was watching the horses move, working with them with injuries, and I went down the route of rehab and care. And in that period of time, it slowed me down because I had to be more present with the horses. I had to listen. I had to observe. It wasn't just about getting the horses going and doing the exercise and the regular sort of management that we would do. There had to be periods where I was just still with them and listening with my hands, usually if the hands were on, or physically watching, obviously with my eyes. And in that was, I think, one of the turning points that definitely took me into a place of communication that I hadn't experienced before. So they began to communicate how they were feeling through, just through the soft tissue, through the muscles, through the movement, which I started to read and process very differently. It was like they had this huge amount of data to share with me physically through my hands and what I was seeing. And that, I think, was the beginning of communicating with animals at this deeper level. It was this listening that I hadn't really stopped for long enough to listen to before. And that was, I think, the start of the journey into being able to because initially when I wanted to help horses, it was literally me helping their horse. You don't think you don't think you think you're there to serve them and you're helping them. But what I realized was that a lot of what they were mirroring back was about me, and they needed me to deal with certain parts of me to help them. It was a two-way thing, and that I started to unravel and realize that this rescuing thing wasn't necessarily what it was all about. It was going into a very different level of understanding, and so that was the beginning of this, and that just really took me down another path. It was obviously down the same path, but there was no going back. I was going to have to sort of really experience and immerse into this and really fully understand these glimpses that I'd started to witness as I worked with them. And it was intriguing, and it was so powerful, because it was as if this door had been opened, which I didn't even realize the door was there.
Isn't that amazing? That we don't even realize the door is there. I think that's an important thing to reiterate.
Yeah, definitely.
What was your degree in teaching? Were you always working with horses and teaching?
No, before that, I just had regular jobs. I worked for British Airways for about, I think, 17 years. So I was working in the offices there, and then I was flying, and I was helping my mum and dad out with their business. They had a dry cleaners and laundrette, so it was very different to what I loved doing. And they all were jobs that seemed to they were just a means to an end, really. But I never felt, I always sort of felt this sort of empty void, this emptiness that I never seemed to quite fill. It was one of those feelings that, it took life-changing events and struggles and challenges to really see that was never going to be filled until I followed what I believed in, and I followed what I really, truly was passionate about. So, So yeah, so we're going back to the horses. Yeah, so I trained as an instructor, and then I trained in anatomy and physiology. So I was working with sort of rehab. It was all sort of the rehab work, and well, we did the teaching sort of fizzled out because of the draw in this direction, where we started to work with people with the healing work. So it was really quite a funny balance at the time, trying to work with a horse when somebody wanted to go and compete with it, and then I was having this experience where this horse was completely showing myself all of who it was, and for me then to see it in saddles, bridles, and sometimes being forced to do something it maybe wasn't actually wanting to do. So I couldn't work with those together in the end. One had to go, and because of the nature of what I found with the horses as I'd gone down this path, because I met them on a completely equal footing, and not that I thought I was there was any hierarchy before that, but in the natural process of when I was younger and being trained and learn to ride, and you go through all the in the UK, it's the passing with them. It's you, the trainer or the teacher, and the horse will or must do this or that. Well, that wasn't what I experienced during this period, and I had to find ways and techniques to work with the horse in a non-force way. It had to always be on an equal and mutual footing for me to fully honour what I had been offered. So yeah, bridles and saddles and shoes and all sorts of things went out the window, and we found new methods, and overcame any kind of fears, and chose to start to work with these horses so that they fully were given the full respect and honour that I could give them.
It sounds like you finally just started a job that was more your passion instead of one that you just did to make money.
Yes, yeah,
and
exactly.
Then, okay, so that was the segue I was trying to figure out. You eventually just did what you loved and trained in what you loved to make money instead of the other thing, which is awesome. And then that just evolved. So that's what I thought. I was okay. So that is amazing. And then it really evolved. When did it become? Now you live on the horse farm. You own it and you run it. So you did the training and you took the job in something that was your passion, which was a huge life change.
Yeah.
At what point did that segue into you having your own place with the horses, and how did you manage that?
Well, that was really we the change for that. It was always, because we had the horses, we always wanted to get our own place, and that was our long-term aim. And we always wanted to live with them, so that because it is quite difficult when you're not at the same place and you're having to move around every day. So that was an aim. But when we lost the child, and I think both of me and my husband were going through the grief, it was one of those periods when it's all the things that you think you should be doing just drop away, and the things that we were passionate about really step forward. The compassion and love for life and other people, and serving the world in a way that was suddenly, we weren't aligned with the life we had. When we lost Samson, it was like bam, he threw into our world a wake-up call. It was like, this is your life. This is just, you're just on the rat race of surviving in the way that we're told to do, and that we're conditioned to do, and we're brought up to think that we've got to do. But with all that away at that time, and in that space, that period of grief, what we could, that wasn't sort of in our sort of main sphere of thought. And we certainly, me at the time, because of how the horses healed me and helped me see life and see the blessing of a death and the blessing of life and death, I knew that my life was dedicated back to them, and I knew that they were here. They had far bigger purpose than I ever realized. So that was really the pull, and that just suddenly, my husband ended up leaving his job. They weren't very he was going through his own grief, and they really weren't very I would say compassionate towards him during that time. And it was just the push, so it just pushes you out of your old life. And we just got drawn onto this new track, and financially it was very difficult. It's not easy. The finances, it's not something that where we earn a lot of money, but our needs are met, and we are serving something that is just worthwhile. The long term, I mean, our long term aims are obviously that this place is is eventually put into a trust, and it's here for the next generations to develop it in the way that they can, to do more good, or and see fit. So it was quite the direction was sort of easy for me, and it sort of, my husband sort of got pulled along into it because of the circumstances. And then I think as well as we've grown into it, and our ideas have started to come together, and we're building upon all the different things that we want to do. I think we have more of an understanding of what the outer world was doing to us, where we may have ended up, and so it just pulls us along. It just keeps us going. And it's not about money, in the sense that our hearts are into what we create, and that seems to have a very different energy that draws to us the things that we need to take the next steps, and to ensure that it carries on. And I think it's our sort of intention and love that we're pouring into it, and the unconditional love from the animals. I think they know what we're doing very much. So it's like a real team effort. So it was a strange one. There was nothing sort of. It was one of those things again that just sort of took over life, and is evolving.
We are definitely going back. So I am definitely going back. So you dropped a few bombs. First of all, congratulations, you're married. So we didn't cover that. At some point in your journey, you met this man and got married. You're still with him.
Yeah.
You guys had Emma. At what point in the journey of your jobs was Emma born, and did you get married?
All right. So Emma, I was married. Emma is a different dad. I split up with Emma's dad when she was 18 months old, and Matthew and I got married in 2010. We were together quite a few years. We were together, I think, when Emma was around 3. But we both like horses, so we both had the same passions for horses. We were doing different things, and he was really, really, when I was going through mostly quite a vulnerable time, he was very supportive and really strong when I was going through a weaker time of my life. And Emma life was challenging for Emma. She went through a split with her own family, with me and her dad met someone else, so she had like 2 lots of, suddenly they're thrown into a whole new existence. And she was very quiet and sensitive, and she is a real gentle soul. And she found growing up really, really difficult, school, and she was, struggled with her confidence. So it was a real challenge for her in those early years. But when we had the little boy, which was in 2012, he just, I remember, and this may sound strange, but I remember sitting at the stables one day and I heard that I would have this child and he was coming to change lives. And I thought, oh, but then when he died, I thought, this is just crazy. But he's done exactly that. He's changed, he's changed all of our lives, because he has made each one of us look at who we are and what was going on in our lives. And obviously because of him, this centre that's been created is all because of him, really. So
Emma was 3 when you and Matthew
yeah,
met. You were already working with horses, and it was
yeah,
something that was a common denominator between you
yeah.
two. So this wasn't like a foreign thing for him or for you by
No,
this point.
no.
So you had Samson
Mm-hmm.
in 2012, and Emma was how old at that point?
She'd be 13 then. Emma would be
Okay.
13. Yeah.
And tell me about Samson.
Oh, well, my husband he'd worked really hard, and he'd got to this stage, and he wasn't sure he wanted children because he had a lot of responsibility anyway. And then suddenly, I think he thought, oh gosh, yeah. So we thought, oh, so we'll try for a baby, and we did, and Samson was born on the 21st of December 2012, and he wasn't alive, and we were obviously devastated, and we took him. I've just written actually a story for it's a book of change with sacred stories, and it's a short story, and it actually describes what happened during that period, and how we brought him home and showed him where he would have lived and all the hopes and aspirations that we had for him, and it was one of those times where, even though you're going through grief, I felt completely blessed, and it was Christmas time, and I remember seeing a lot of beautiful, I looked in people's homes and saw these beautiful trees and Christmas lights and families together, and I don't know, I all I can say is I felt such joy for them. And I think this child came to show me the blessing of family and life, and to make the most of it, to really embrace it, and to let go of the fears, and to really really get stuck into living, and stop hiding, and don't worry about all those things that you think you should do, or you might upset, or if you do this, or all those little things that you just hide away inside yourself, that you just never draw to the surface because you're so frightened of anybody seeing it. And like I say, it was the strangest time, because although I particularly, I think I sort of grieved initially first, and Matthew was sort of holding on for me, and as I was sort of moving through it and getting to grips with it, he then sank into his grief. So we went through a strange time, but in that, I think we were all united, and particularly Emma, because it was as if it's as if he wove us together. It's like he brought her this abundance of courage, and she started to face so much that she struggled with, and we used to talk about him, and we knew it. We just believed he was with us. We felt that he was with us in spirit, and I do believe he was the one that really triggered me to really see what the horses were actually saying to me, what they were sharing with me, which was, again, life is phenomenally beautiful. Make sure you look under those covers, Helen. Make sure you peel back all those layers, and make sure you don't miss it. And without him, I would have missed life, definitely.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that, because
Yes.
as a mom, you know,
Yeah,
I
know.
did, yes. I'm hugging you from the
Yeah.
US to the UK.
Oh.
But what a great outlook. And then you hadn't gotten the house at that point yet. That's what really triggered this pretty
Yes.
phenomenally enormous change. I love what you said about, it's not about the money, our needs are met. A lot of times we do have to meet the needs, you know.
Oh yeah, we need them.
Money is energy also that we're exchanging.
Yes.
And so although you can be very altruistic and pure in your intent, you do need to pay the mortgage.
Definitely, yeah.
So,
well, that was one of the big fears, I think, because I thought this is the path that is so profoundly powerful, and every day I wake up, it is drawing me down this path. So do I follow this path that is so powerful and that is saying, come this way and take the risk, trust it? And do I trust that if I take this path, our needs will be met and we will be able to fulfill this? Or do I follow this other path where it was split? So it was sort of, I remember sort of feeling I'm making an all or nothing. It's all or nothing. That's how it felt. And I think because I feared that, would I be able to fulfill this role of facilitating then to share this with other people, and would anybody want to pay me for it? You know, am I worth anything? It's all those feelings of worth and value, and that one has been a huge one for me. Not that I don't have complete value in what the horses do. It was the valuing of me as a facilitator, and being able to I suppose overcome those feelings. That if we go back to when I was younger, it was the responses from people when I was younger that these connections and feelings I had for animals were seen as a weakness, sensitive. You know, they were all negative responses. So this was something that was being dragged to the surface, that I believe Samson was saying, bring these to the surface, because these are your strengths. These are what are going to make your life fulfilling. And so I did, and I do even today. I really have to work on keeping that focus strong, because the amount of work that we do to keep this going and to build it, and to just do the day-to-day care of looking after the horses, takes a great amount of faith, and knowing and trust that is a divinely guided job that I've been given. And so yeah, some days are quite big on having that trust and faith that this will financially always be balanced, you know, with what we give and what we receive. So I understand what you're saying.
well, I mean, it is the reality, right? Life does have to happen. You can be a nonprofit and give 90% away, but you do, the bottom line is we need to eat and have electricity, or right.
Definitely.
But I get having the mindset of both. I want to ask you a question. I love that you just brought up how you felt as a kid and how that was always being stuffed down. And now here you are, the death of your son, and doing what you love, but all of those feelings from the young you know, little girl Helen coming blasting to the surface. I know when I did a lot of work on myself, I never liked the word fear, although I know I have fear. But the word that was really poignant for me was shame. I felt shame, you know, and I think it is hard to look in the mirror and face those demons, whatever your demons are, and name them and discuss them, and then try to either change those parts of you into something positive or eliminate them. That's a lot of inner work. So definitely. The horses are helping you with this process. And Matthew was on board. Was it harder for him or harder? Because you're both, this was a hard decision to jump into, to do this. I
Yeah.
completely understand that. Were you on board together?
Yeah, I think I had started to, I'd known, I mean, from being young, I'd always sort of dreamed of having this sort of place for animals. But this was very different in the sense of, well, we'd got to this place of, right, we're gonna set this center up, but it was on an equal footing with these animals. So it wasn't me rescuing animals. This was me supporting these animals, not having pity for them, bringing them in, working with them, and then allowing them to shine in the way that they mirrored or they were asking. Matthew was most probably still in quite a state of grief when, and he was really pulling himself through into, he knew he couldn't go back to the old way, but he didn't really know where he fitted in the new way. It was, and him being a man, and he was in the building industry, so it was quite a, you know, a masculine, quite a, you know, environment. So he felt like he was failing in many ways, when he wasn't. He was actually succeeding because he was facing so many things and coming to terms with so many things at that time, and he was balancing out who he really was. That period wasn't lost. It was actually a really important time of growth, although it was, for him, you know, it was really challenging. So at the same time this is going on, and he knows he wants to do it, and he wants to, he sees himself, he's the builder, he's the one that puts everything together. So we have the plans, and then he creates it. You know, he's the one that's sort of thinking in that sense of how we can do it, and how we can do it, you know, so that the long-term outcome of it can be beneficial for the animals that come, and that we're flexible for change in the future, and we can keep developing what we're doing. So going from the job he was working into really creating here has been a funny, I'd say, sort of bumpy ride that is still unraveling. But what it's done is, as he's been sort of undoing the past to create what he sees in the future, he's found who he is in the middle of it, and he's not what he thought he was. And he's got so many more gifts and talents that he didn't recognize, or he maybe wouldn't have found before. So it's been like a real uncovering of who he is. But his passion for this place, as we have developed it, has grown and grown and grown into something where I don't think he had the same faith as I had initially, because mine was really centered around, I had this phenomenal experience. He didn't have the experience with the horses that I had. He could see it, and he could see it in me, and that was at the time enough for him, because it was like a miraculous, you know, for him to visually see what happened to me, I think was a kind of a miracle. And he could see there was more benefit in that than there was in the way life was going. So it was easy for him in one sense, but difficult letting go of the attachments of the old life and the old way of being. I let go of my old life easier than he let go of his. But it's definitely, I think, because we both, you know, we loved horses, and we both had a lot of similar outlooks on life, and the losing of the child brought us closer, were all things that were beneficial to the moving forward with this project that we're doing now.
What about now with Matthew and the horses? Because I'm sure he saw your process, which that's fantastic, and it brought you closer, and he was letting go of I mean, he didn't have to totally let it go, because he's still a builder. He's still doing all of that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So did he sort of move into that space of working with the horses on his own to heal, or is that sort of peripheral to him?
He was seeing it, and he tried. But he tried to force it, I think, initially, because he saw it was happening so easily to me. But I'd been sort of unconsciously prepared for it for quite some years, because I was working with them with the hands and the physical work that I was doing. So I was more primed to be able to receive. So initially, I think he was maybe a bit frustrated that he wasn't feeling what I was feeling. But as he stepped back and the time's passed, and he's seen and he's observed the horses and the changes in them, it softened him in a way and soothed him in the same way it did me, but it's happened in a different way for him. So he's observed them on a day-to-day basis, and then started to see the difference that's made, and the connections he's made with them has shifted dramatically. And again, he doesn't communicate with them in the way I do, but he has his own connection, which is so deep and heartfelt. I think, we've all seen a side to him that is so deep and sensitive, that maybe the Matthew before wouldn't have realized was there within him. So and his whole outlook to animals, to how animals are treated in to the world, when you've connected with an animal on such a level, and you understand what they are saying back to you, it's very hard to sometimes look out into the world at what is going on with other animals and factory farming and things like that, to have that realization at such a deep level. It does change it, and it's changed him. Our latest intake was a little donkey. He was going for live, they have these live slaughter wagons that go, and it's a long story, but he ended up here. He was in a very bad way, but Matthew and this donkey, they are like the connection and the fun they have, and the communication between them is just beautiful. And it's one of those things that you do take, I believe you take that with you take that relationship, that enrichment, that connection, that never leaves you. It's priceless. And so yeah, I do see him having a great time with them when he's on his own around the yard. There'll be some loving going on, and I'm sure a few years ago he would have been ridiculed for some of the things that go on here now.
Don't you think just like when you were a kid, you hit the point faster and differently than he did, but you hit a point where you don't care what the outside world thinks if they see you. In the beginning you do, like, that's not masculine, or what will people think, or men aren't supposed to be emotional, whatever those beliefs are. And then you hit a point where you realize how dumb all of that is. And that you really don't care because you're happy. And
exactly.
That's probably the most freeing thing.
Well, I think that's the thing that we've seen with him, because although I I'm an advocate for the animals and what I see, he will go out there and really speak it. He's not frightened to say it, and with passion, and and sometimes it may be, I think, maybe now's not the time to say all this where in certain situations, but he is passionate about it, and because he 100% believes it, it's his. He has seen it and lived it. So good for him. He's out there doing it and sharing the love of the animal kingdom.
Which is great. And so in the time, the 6.5, go closer to 7 years since Samson's death, you guys have continued to get closer, and your relationships really changed. And it changed Emma.
Oh yeah. I mean, Matthew and I think what it's done, it's made us really look at how we are developing and how our relationships developed, and it's made us look at sort of past generations that we're seeing and their relationships, and making sure that I'm not saying we don't make their mistakes, but we stay true to what we adjust, and we keep coming back and readjusting. And like with the horses, every day I observe, and every day I see something subtly different, and I'll change the environment, I'll change what I'm doing, I'll offer something different. And that is sort of really just been sort of married into our relationship, because, you know, as we're changing and we're getting older, and you know, it does bring your focus back to the relationships are the important things. And, you know, I don't want to get stuck being a certain role that gets created for me. You know, the roles and labels went right out the window when Samson went. So, because I don't feel I've got a label anymore, and I'm just who I am, and I'm living it every day, and it's different every day. And you know, so that's a wonderful freeing thing, that we are not getting stuck into the roles of the labels and things. But for Emma, it's beautiful, and I feel blessed, because I just went to watch her down at Latitude Festival. It's a massive festival in the UK, and she got an opportunity to write spoken word poetry with a group of other youngsters. And to see her up there on a stage sharing a message, and it was about saving the world, so it's a great message. They did a fantastic performance, was wonderful, because this child who my heart went out to, and I saw her struggle making friends, and lacking in confidence, to see her up there doing it, facing those, you know, like you say, those fears and all that shame and stuff, because shame was the big one for me. I had this, you know, I could feel shameful about anything. You know, it was sort of conditioned in. I don't know that it was our era or what, but it you know, I find a lot of people feel you know, they don't feel worthy and able to just be and embrace it without feeling bad about everything. So to see her doing it, Jen, was it this last weekend was, it made me know it's all been worth it. It's really all been worth facing, and keep facing, and keep moving through, and keep bringing it on every day, and knowing that on the other side of it is the peace, you know, moving out of the comfort zone, which Samson pushed me right out of the comfort zone, and I was left in this sort of what felt like no man's land, led me to, you know, like a paradise, really. And that doesn't mean it's all happy and great all the time. There's good days and what we see as bad days, but they're all great days, because we're not worried about facing whatever comes. So life for me certainly was a lot easier when I didn't judge it as good and bad. It was just what it was, and it was great. We've got a day to embrace. and again, and I think what the when I work with the horses, where they go, that level of communication, I know people maybe think animals are sort of lower in the pecking order or consciousness, but for me it's not. They can pull into a higher level of thinking, or being, I should say, where they can show so many perspectives on a situation. And in that place, the potential to create is mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing. It's like any situation you see yourself stuck in, if you can draw yourself up into this place, you can change it. And I think they taught me about focus, and holding a new focus, and not being frightened to hold that focus, even if it wasn't initially happening, but keep holding it till now. You know, I find myself sometimes, I think, oh my God, you know, I've held that focus and it's happened within 24 hours. You know, so they're just teaching me a new way to live. You know, they're still teaching me 7 years down the line. I go out every day and think, right, you know, okay, what will it be today? And I'm open to that learning.
I imagine that it would be really difficult for people. I mean, a lot of the processes, but that being in the moment, and not worrying about things and taking it a day, like, wow, let's see what's going to happen today. I don't know. It's an adventure. Like, wait, we don't know. To not plan out every second would be difficult for people. So I bet when you have clients that come, I'm imagining, you watch their process, like you said, the analytical brains, where all of a sudden there's got to be a shift in these people, and you must just go like, where you watch take this huge breath for them.
Well, it's amazing because the horses actually do that. They'll come in and they will emphasize the breath in, and it's so loud, and then another horse might emphasize the breath out. And each horse has a particular sort of character, and for whoever moves in to work with the person, I'm very aware of what they'll be working on, so how they've started to work, they sort of, it's like a dance really. So I'm watching and understanding, and sometimes I have to be so patient because they are waiting for a particular moment to move in to deal with whatever that the person might be just holding on rigid initially. What on earth is going to happen? I'm in this field with this horse, this woman, and what am I doing here? And when they have that moment of letting go, you see that it's begun, and the undoing is initially what begins, and usually emotion, memories, and horses connect with our with the limbic system, and this is where this is why they've got such a powerful initial connection. It's so quick. So that's basically, that's how it all starts. And so I don't even really have to do the breathing in and out anymore. I did used to say breathe in and breathe out and relax into the environment, but they've even taken that on, and I do say, listen to what they do, listen to the body, listen to the physiology. They're just trying to align you to theirs, and they'll breathe and their eyes will change. They release through the jaw. So I can tell when people are releasing emotionally, because we don't even have to speak, because not everybody will want to discuss what's going on, because it's so raw. Whereas in this experience with a horse, you can bring that to the surface, and they are moving it for you. They're pulling it to the surface. They're bringing it out. They're allowing the emotion to flow, and there you can start to bring in different perspectives of it. You can see it from another point of view. You can draw out of it the positives, the things that maybe enriched you, that have given you strength, that you can now face and take forward into the next stage. I just feel very, very, very lucky to that I feel so blessed that they actually work with me and offer me what they do. So it's very rewarding.
And you get to pass that on to other people now.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you inviting me on the show, Jen. It's a pleasure to share it with you.